Okay, so hello and thank you for joining me for this month's full scope workshop. Today we have the staff of Nevada Arts Council to talk to us about opportunities and services and their programs from Nevada Arts Council. And so before we begin, I would like to remind all the attendees that this workshop is being recorded and will be posted on our county website and social media accounts indefinitely. By participating in the workshop, you are agreeing to be included in the recording. We will have a question and answer segment after the presentation. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can either raise your hand icon or type it in the chat box and we will address them the best we can. Now, please welcome our speakers. We have Stephanie Montgomery, Shireen Chaudhry, excuse me if I'm saying it incorrectly, Brad McMullen, Michelle Patrick, and Sapira Chuck. So would you like to take turns introducing yourselves and then you can hop onto your presentation anytime.
Sure. Thanks so much, Eileen. And I'm actually going to share our presentation for our intros so that we can have our contact information up there for everyone to see. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Stephanie Montgomery, and I am the Grants and Project Analyst in the Northern Nevada office, but I cover the whole state for my program area. And I'd love to go around and just have my colleagues introduce themselves. Maybe we can just go clockwise here. Sapira, would you like to start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Sapira Churk. I am the Artist Service Specialist, and I'm located here in Southern Nevada office in Las Vegas. My contact is right here, and our program area deals directly with individual artists. So if you are one, you have my contact now. All right.
Michelle, would you like to go next?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Patrick, the Community Arts Development Specialist here in our Las Vegas office, along with Sapira and Brad and Shireen. And I oversee all organizational, institutional, and municipality partnerships. Again, there's my contact information, and I look forward to sharing more about what we do in our program area. Shireen?
Hi everyone, my name is Shireen Chaudhry. You can see my contact information right there. I am the Arts Learning Specialist based in Southern Nevada in the Las Vegas office, and my program area deals with all things arts education as well as therapeutic arts. So if you are making art with other people in group settings, that would be where the Arts Learning Program area comes in. So feel free to reach out if you're doing any arts education. And I'll pass it over to Brad.
Hey everyone, my name's Brad McMullen. I am the Folklife Specialist here at the Nevada Arts Council, as well as the State Folklorist for the state of Nevada. I work with both individuals, organizations, anyone, as long as they are doing traditional arts, folk arts, any kind of culturally specific art being passed down from community member to community member. So if you're in doing traditional art, please get in touch with me. I'm based down here in Las Vegas, but I do work all around the state.
So much, everyone. And so you can see we do have some other staff, particularly those up north, and our executive director that aren't joining us today. But should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. Okay. So this is a little roadmap about what we are going to share with you today in three basic sections. First, we're going to go over some general features of our grants and awards that are kind of applicable generally across the board. But of course, you always want to check those specific guidelines for any opportunities, grants, awards, programs, or otherwise that you are interested in. Then we will jump specifically into grants and awards by program area that, each of our staff have introduced themselves by program area. And then finally, we'll go into some general kind of grant writing tips that we recommend for you as an applicant. And I'll just say here too that we really want to hear your questions, but we would like to hold off until the end just to make sure that we can get through our presentation. And if you have any questions that we're not able to cover today, please feel free to reach out with using our contact information. We are very happy to answer any questions that you have via email, phone, or however. Okay, so our general features, I'm going to cover this section. And again, I just want to stress here, although generally, these general features that I'm going to share with you are applicable to our grants, whether they are individual or organizational, depending. You should always, always, always read the specific guidelines. So if you go to our website under grants and then the fiscal year, the one you're looking for our upcoming grants is our fiscal year 26, which opens July 1. You want to go to the specific grant opportunity that you are looking for and very carefully read the guidelines to make sure that you're eligible and you understand all of the details of the grant. Okay, so starting out, we want to share a little bit about your eligibility if you are an organization that is applying for a grant. If you are a nonprofit, you need to be federally exempt, or your tax status must be federally exempt as a 501c3 with the IRS. We cannot accept fiscal agents. You must be the primary applicant with that status. And for the state of Nevada, you have to be actively incorporated with the Secretary of State. You got to be in good standing at the time of application, which we do check. And you must be based in Nevada, with the exception, some of our grants, specifically the project grant for organizations, a border state may apply, but there are specific requirements that must be met in terms of that programming. 100% of the funding for that, any funding awarded would have to go to Nevada residents, and at least 75% of that project would have to be serving Nevada residents. For public institutions, if you are public school and library, or library, you have to be an individual school or library that has your own budget and facility. So that essentially means that if you're in the same district, right, you may apply independently, but you have to meet that criteria. Likewise, for colleges, it's limited to no more than one grant per academic department per fiscal year. So please coordinate with your departmental colleagues if you are planning on applying for a grant. There can only be one. Projects also have to serve the broader community outside of the institution and generate a kind of area-wide arts involvement. And finally, our grants may not support your institution's internal programs for those college applicants. And just a note here, again, you'll see that public institutions are not eligible for our operating support grant. So keep that in mind when you're looking over the different grant opportunities if you are a college. For individuals, this is for all of our individual grants. I do have one caveat here. So you must be a current Nevada resident and have been in residence for at least 1 year prior to the date of the grant application. You are required to show proof of that through especially a Nevada state ID is the easiest way to do that. You have to be a U.S. citizen or have legal permanent resident status. You have to be at least 21 years old. And you may not be enrolled as a degree-seeking student in a field related to the type of grant. So our grants are grants for art projects, art-related projects. And finally, artists that are working in collaborations have to file one joint application with one individual as the primary applicant. Now, the exception to this is our Artist Fellowship Award. People must apply as individuals and present their own work. You may not apply as a group or in collaboration for that specific opportunity. Our grants have different time periods of support. What does that mean? So we have grants that operate on an annual basis, meaning they would take place and be supported during our fiscal year. So our upcoming fiscal year 26 is July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. And so examples of grants that would fall under that category of annual grants, project grant for organizations, the Arts Learning Project Grant, Folk Life Community Grant, and Folk Life Artist Grant. We also have biannual grants that operate on a 6-month cycle. So cycle A would be projects that take place between July 1, 2025 and December 31st, 2025. And cycle B would be for projects that take place between January 1st, 2026 and June 30th, 2026. So that includes our Project Grant for Artists and our Arts Learning Express grants. And finally, we have one grant that operates on a 2-year cycle. That is our operating support grant. Essentially, what that means is that you would submit an application for year 1, which is July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. You would submit an interim report at the end of that year 1. And as long as everything is in good standing, you would then have your second year of the grant. You don't need to fill out another full application. And that would run from July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. Okay. We also have 2 different types of deadlines. There are our regular deadlines, which are due by a specific date and time. They are always due by 5 p.m. Pacific time, if that is helpful whenever you're thinking about your submissions. And I would really stress that particularly for these grants, it is crucial to submit your applications in advance of the deadline if possible, because sometimes our system submittable, it will it's going to cut people off at 5 p.m. exactly. And so be careful not to miss the deadline just due to a technical issue like that. So again, our regular deadlines include the Project Grant for Organizations, the Arts Learning Project, Project Grant for Artists, Operating Support Grant, Artist Fellowship Award, Nevada Heritage Fellowship, and the Teaching Artist Roster. So those all have strict deadlines by a specific date and a specific time. So please pay attention to those times. We have a number of grants that are on a rolling deadline. So what that essentially means is that the application opens and we accept applications on a rolling basis. So you can submit them anytime that the application is open, but they are due at least 30 days before the proposed project is supposed to take place. And the application is only open while funds remain available. So just keep that in mind, that you want to try to submit early for those rolling deadlines if possible, because funding can go fast. So this includes our Arts Learning Express grant, our Folklife Community Grant, and our Folklife Artist Grant. Okay, so how are our applications reviewed? I want to cover first our panel review process. So most of our grants are panel reviewed. And what that essentially means is that there is first an internal review by Nevada Arts Council staff, and then there is an external review by panelists. So those panelists can include art specialists, artists, educators. They can be in-state or out-of-state panelists, and you can apply to be a panelist as well. So please, if you have expertise that might fit with some of our grant opportunities, consider applying to be a panelist for us. The panelists are given access to the applications on our online platform submittable. They use the grant criteria that are, the review criteria, I should say, that are in each individual set of grant guidelines, and they provide comments on application strengths, areas of improvement, and they score based on that review criteria. And just a tip for applicants, you can request those written comments if you would like to read them. Those are available to you, but you just have to let us know that you would like them. And then finally, after the panelist review concludes in terms of reading the applications, we have a panel review meeting. This is open to the public, and you may observe it on Zoom. You may also come to our physical locations and observe it if you wish, but it is very conveniently available to you on Zoom. Transcripts of that meeting are available upon request. Again, just let the grants team, myself know. And just really to be aware that attendance is not required of applicants. You are not required to attend, but it is a wonderful learning experience. whether that is for feedback on your specific application or just hearing the comments and generals from panelists. It really is kind of a gold mine of information for improving your grant writing skills. Okay, so which of our grants use this panel review process? We have the Project Grant for Organizations, Arts Learning Project, Project Grant for Artists, Operating Support Grant, Artist Fellowship Award, Nevada Heritage. If you're having any trouble hearing me, because I just got a message that my internet connection's a little unstable, so just stop me at any time, please. Okay, so that's a list of our grants that use panel review. Again, most of our grants do. Our internally reviewed grants essentially work like this. Nevada Arts Council staff review applications for eligibility, completeness, and their adherence to the program requirements. Those applications, they need to meet all eligibility and program requirements to be awarded, and they're awarded in the order in which they're received, only while funds remain available. So please apply early for our rolling grants. And just, similar to how you may, request those panelist comments, just be aware that those internal review, we do keep a record of that review, but we don't have panelist comments in the same way that our panel reviewed applications do. What grants does this apply to? Our Arts Learning Express grant, our Folklife Community grant, and our Folklife Artist grant are all those internally reviewed applications. Okay, the question that everybody is really interested in, right? What are the funding amounts? So, and in particular, how do we determine those funding amounts? You'll notice on the grant guidelines that there is a limit, right, set to how much you can request, right? Usually it's up to a certain amount you can request for each type of grant. And this is how we kind of determine those funding amounts based on the review process. So for those applications that are panel reviewed, as I said, the panelists score those grant applications, and based on those scores, they make a funding recommendation to the Nevada Arts Council board. And just as a kind of piece of information, when looking at those scores, which are not always, but generally are out of 100. We have some grants that are out of have a different maximum score. But per the Nevada Arts Council board decision on September 20th, 2019, grant applications with an average score of less than 70 will not be funded for those applications that are out of 100. So just keep that in mind when interpreting the score, but of course, reach out if you have any questions. And I'll just note that, for example, the Artist Fellowship Award has a different scoring, has a different maximum score. So that wouldn't apply to something like that. For internally reviewed applications that meet all of those eligibility and program requirements, as I said, they're awarded in the order in which they are received, but only while funds remain available. So again, apply early. Grants are, in both cases, in fact, contingent upon available funding as approved by the Nevada Arts Council board. So in addition to your score, in the panel review case, or when you apply for the internal review case, in addition to that, it's based upon our available funding, what your funding outcome may be. So just to emphasize that, not all of our applications are funded. And the grant awards may vary from the requested amount. So you may request a certain amount, depending on our available funding, depending on your panel review score, if applicable, you will see an impact on the funding that you are approved for. Okay. In addition to that, right, there are certain things that you may use our funding for if you are awarded, and there are certain things that you may not. And I'm just going to stress again here that allowable costs and unallowable costs really vary by the individual grant and award. So you should always refer to the individual guidelines and the specific allowable costs. And in addition to that, you should also read our general grant and award policies, because there are some things that are generally restricted for for costs for our grants. So with all of that said, here is a list of kind of general things that you might look out for. So generally across our grants, things like project administrative personnel and consultants, artist fees, be that for the applicant artist, collaborating artists they're working with, or production artists, contractor fees, facility costs, consumable materials and supplies, permanent equipment, and I'll just say that there are limits to the dollar amount for that, and that varies by grant. Production expenses, marketing and promotion, and travel. Only accommodation and transportation, food and drink are not allowed. That's both a state and a federal rule. Those are some of the costs, allowable costs, generally for most of our grants. Now, again, please check the individual grant guidelines. Things that are generally unallowable. And in fact, let me see. This list, although it is not complete, there is a longer list of unallowable costs in our general grant and award policies, and the individual grants do often, stipulate that there are particular things that particular grants, grant funding may not go towards. But in general, things like duplicating costs, so double, we might call that kind of double dipping, right? You are getting something paid for by our grant, but also by some other source of funding. Duplicate costs are not allowed ever. Any projects that were previously funded by the Nevada Arts Council are also not allowable. Any completed projects, things like cash prizes, gifts, gift cards, auction items, goods for resale, or any kind of funds to purchase those things are also currently unallowable. Competition awards, scholarships, fundraising that benefits the application as a or the applicant organization as a whole. So if you were fundraising for your organization versus maybe raising some funds for the project specifically, that is not allowed. You may not fundraise for the applicant organization as a whole. And any hospitality or entertainment expenses, and again, that kind of ties into food and drink, are not allowable costs. So please be very careful because you are required to submit receipts. And if those receipts show unallowable costs, you will not be allowed to claim those costs, and you may be required to return some of the grant funds. Okay. I'm sure there may be questions after that, but we're going to jump into, so please, submit your questions, hold your questions. We're going to go ahead and jump into those specific grants and awards by program area. And we are going to start with artist services. So Sapira, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. I know Vision's on the call. I just want to show that this is one of the awarded project in the past. So the artist services program area is our staff is myself, Sapira Chirk, and Stefan Reed, who's also on the call. Stefan is in the Northern office in Reno. So the Artist Service Program encouraged the work of Nevada's literary, performing, and visual artists with a focus on the needs and concerns of the individual artists. The program components serve artists through grant funding, programs supporting the work of artists, professional development opportunities, and technical assistance. Next slide, please. Thank you. So let's talk about the two grants that we have this calendar year. The first one is the project grant for artists. And I said calendar year, but we really work in fiscal years. So it's the FY26 project grant for artists. This project grant provides support for your artistic projects. It's open to individual and collaborative groups, but just to mention the collaborative group, you have to submit one application with one individual as the applicant. And then you can list your collaborators in the application. The application is currently open for our Cycle A, and I'll go over that in a little bit. The application deadline is March 3rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. Again, it's at 5 p.m., not at midnight. So make sure that you get your application in well before 5 in case, your internet goes out or something. The grant amount is up to $3,000. There's no match required. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. The time period for support for Cycle A, which is what this application is currently open for, is very specific. It's the first half of the fiscal year, which is July 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. So if you have a project that you're planning on completing or need support during that period, now is the time to apply. If you have a project that's going to fall on July 1st to June 30th, 2026, you're going to apply for, you're going to wait until the Cycle B application open later this year. And something to keep in mind, we want to know when you're actually using the funds. So let's say you have a art exhibition coming up early next year, but you're going to be needing money to help frame them or something. You're going to pay for them, let's say October. You would actually apply in Cycle A because you're using the money then. So that is something to keep in mind. This grant support individual artists in the production and presentation of artistic projects. Example of eligible project includes art exhibitions, performances, readings, concert, the creation of art, portfolio creation, curation, and marketing / promotional activity related to an art project. So FYI, we have changed our guidelines to now accept curatorial projects. So if you're a curator looking for funding for your art project, you can apply for this grant. And again, this grant is not a teaching artist grant. So if you are looking for funding to either teach a class or take a class, this is not the right grant for you. And if your project, let's say, includes a component of that, you have to understand that we're not able to fund that component through this grant. It might be able to fund other parts of your project, but not the teaching or learning component of your project. All right, next slide. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the Artist Fellowship Award. This is our most competitive and prestigious award here at the Nevada Arts Council. It's one of them. There's two, a fellowship award. So this recognizes outstanding individual artists. It's open to individuals. Application opens March 3rd, 2025 at 8 a.m. And it closes May 1st, 2025 at 5 p.m. Again, it's 5 p.m., not midnight. The award amount is $5,000. And it is award. It's not tied to any project, so you can just receive that amount as a recognition. This award recognizes committed artists living in Nevada who demonstrate sustained excellence in their work and have reached pivotal moments in their artistic practice. It is awarded as an honorarium and does not need to be used for any specific expenses or projects. By acknowledging outstanding artistic accomplishment across a body of work, the program promotes public awareness and appreciation of the role of artists in our society. In odd fiscal year, this grant is open to visual artists, and in even fiscal year, it is open to performing and literary artists. So this fiscal year, the application is open for performing artists, so musician, theater, writers, actors, and dancers, and fiction, poetry writers. All right, I think that's it for my slides. Or is there more?
No, that's it. Thanks so
Cool,
much,
thanks.
Sophia.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, if we could have Shireen come on for arts learning.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hi everybody, my name is Shireen Chowdhury. I'm the Arts Learning Specialist based in the South. I also have a colleague named Sogund who's based up in the North in our Reno office. And we both cover the whole state for the Arts Learning Program area. So, the Arts Learning Program area supports lifelong learning in the arts by promoting and expanding quality arts education opportunities for all Nevada citizens through statewide initiatives, grants, and professional development opportunities. So, we have a number of different programs in the Arts Learning Program area, as well as grants that are meant to bring arts education to every resident in the state of Nevada. We do this through in K through 12 schools, recreation centers, senior centers, anywhere where we can support bringing arts education programming. We're happy to do that in K through 12 and beyond. So yeah, we do lots of great stuff in the arts learning program area. We can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So the first grant that we have in the Arts Learning Program area is the Arts Learning Project Grant, or ALP for short. And this program, or this grant, is available to nonprofits and public institutions. So it's opening up quite soon, February 3rd, 2025, which is really exciting. And then if you're going to apply for this grant, you'd want to get your application in by April 1st, 2025. And this grant is the biggest grant in the Arts Learning Program area. So it's a $7,000 grant, and it does require a match. It's a one-to-one match, but that match can be cash or it can be in kind. So if there's enough volunteer support, or you're providing a venue, you're providing materials, all of that could count as an in-kind match if you have any issues getting to that $7,000 match. The time period of support for Arts Learning Project is July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. So the fiscal year. And let's see, I'll just read what's on the bullet points and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So the Arts Learning Project Grant supports arts learning activities, teaching artist residencies, and teacher/teaching artists training to provide unique opportunities for students and people of all ages to work with practicing, I'll add, teaching artists. Funds can be used for conducting lessons, workshops, in-person or virtual, educational performances at schools or community facilities, and the execution of one project or activity or a series of related activities. So because this is a bigger grant, I feel like usually we see more than one project being funded through this, but it really depends on what the project is. So as long as it has an educational component, and we really stress the hands-on learning aspect of it as well. So as long as there's hands-on arts education happening, we've seen any number of different types of projects come through ALP. And the one thing that I'll stress for any of the arts learning project or arts learning grants is that it needs to be one to many. So we don't fund through this program area one-on-one lessons. It has to be a group of people that are receiving that hands-on arts education learning. So that's ALP, which is great for organizations or nonprofits. And then we can go to the next slide, please. So the next slide, or the next grant that we have, is the Arts Learning Express grant, which is for shorter term arts education programming. This is a smaller grant, and it's $2,000 with no match required. And it is on a 2-cycle period of support. So we've got cycle A in July 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. And then cycle B is January 1st to June 30th, 2026. So there's 2 periods of support. So you can possibly apply for both periods of support. And yeah, so let's see what else is on the slide. Supports short-term arts education programming. This grant is open to community organizations, public institutions, and individual teaching artists who are on the teaching artist roster, which we'll talk about next. So what's great about the Arts Learning Express grant, or ALX for short, is that if you're an individual teaching artist, as opposed to a public institution or an organization, you're able to apply for ALX as an individual. In order to do that, however, you need to be on our teaching artist roster, which also opens up once a year, and we're going to discuss that next. And if you're not on the teaching artist roster, then you couldn't necessarily apply for this, but you could link up with a nonprofit or a public institution that could apply and pay you teaching artist fees for your program. So that is how that would work. To offer flexibility and expedite funding, ALX grants are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis for each cycle. Grant funds are limited, so early submission is encouraged. That's pretty self-explanatory. We have run out of funds in the past, so the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to get funded for this one. Eligible applicants can receive up to 2 ALX grants per fiscal year, but only 1 ALX grant per cycle. The final report for the first grant must be submitted prior to receiving funds for the second grant. So that is ALX. And Stephanie, can you just make sure I'm correct in this? If you apply for ALP, then you can apply for one round of ALX now?
Let's check the guidelines, like I like
Okay.
to say all the time, because it does change, right, from year to year. And you're right that we did make some changes, and I just want to make sure that I'm giving the right information. So for Arts Learning Express applicants this fiscal year, if you were an organization with an Arts Learning Express grant, you would not be, so you can't hold the Arts Learning Express grant and the Arts Learning Project grant at the same time. So for
Okay.
this fiscal year, and this is one reason why it's so important to check the guidelines, right? Because we do make changes across fiscal years. So this fiscal year for FY26, a hosting organization can receive either an Arts Learning Express or an Arts Learning Project, but not both.
Okay. Yes, so that is important to know if you are a public institution who would be eligible for both. You would have to pick one. Of course, the Arts Learning Project is going to be the bigger grant. So yeah, and let's move on to the teaching artist roster, which we've touched on. The teaching artist roster is meant to connect teaching artists with schools and communities throughout Nevada. And if you go on our website and you go in the Arts Learning Program area, you can actually pull up the teaching artist roster, which is a great database of teaching artists throughout the state of Nevada. If you are a teaching artist in the state of Nevada, please do make sure to apply for the teaching artist roster the next time it opens, which should be in the fall. That way we can get you on it and you'll be eligible for the ALX grant as an individual, which is great. So the teaching artist roster is open to individuals, artist collaborative groups, and nonprofits. And it's meant to build a network of educators, teaching artists, and cultural organizations to create diverse, innovative, and quality arts learning opportunities for all ages. It provides support for formal and informal arts learning programs and projects by artists and arts organizations to reach new communities and new populations. And the teaching artist roster promotes access to learning in and through the arts, as well as a well-rounded education for all Nevada students. And of course, it promotes lifelong learning for the arts for all Nevadans in all disciplines, which is what we're all about in arts learning. So the teaching artist roster is great because we are increasingly providing more and more professional development for teaching artists. So if you have some experience in being a teaching artist, but there's certain aspects of your own teaching artistry practice or business that you need support with, we are increasing the professional development that we offer. Soon we're going to be offering another round of a creative aging training specifically for artists on the roster so that you can get trained in working with seniors. And then we sometimes will have additional grants specifically for creative aging. And whenever we have opportunities, sometimes we'll be reached out to by various organizations who will need teaching artists that they want to hire and pay. And so we will go to the roster first and recommend people through that process or through the roster. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you'll be eligible for ALX, the grant that we have that's open to individuals if you're on the roster, and you can apply for that up to 2 times in a year. So that's really unique. I think it's the only arts education grant specific to Nevada that I can think of. So that's open to individuals. So yeah, that is the arts learning program area. You can go to the next slide. I don't think there's anything else. Awesome. Yeah, so please reach out if you have any questions. Myself or Sogand are happy to help. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Shireen. Thank you. Next, we have Community Arts Development. I could ask Michelle to come on. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name, once again, is Michelle Patrick, and I am the Community Arts Development Specialist here in our Las Vegas office. My colleague, Lauren Frick, who's also affectionately known as Ren, is in our Northern office. She unfortunately is not on this call, but if you need to reach her, we can also leave her contact information in the chat. I just also wanted to take a moment to thank Clark County for inviting us and extending our resources and services to the networking community. So Community Arts Development supports Nevada's nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, municipalities, as I said earlier, public institutions and communities with a variety of programs and services aimed to build vibrant communities statewide. So yes, even though I'm primarily based down here, a lot of my work also does focus and concentrate statewide as well. So sometimes I will be up north or in other rural areas of the state as well. So some of our services that we also provide are not just assessing organizational capacity, but we also provide professional development networking opportunities. We have one coming up in May, the Nevada Basin to Range Exchange, which is a rural urban exchange gathering. We also help to build relationships within and between communities to increase access to the arts. Now, with that being said, many of you will see me out in the field at different events, and sometimes if you happen to be an artist, we'll ask about certain funding opportunities that we have specifically for individuals. Now, I just want you to know that I'm not trying to pass you off, right? Because sometimes it's like, well, let me send you off to this person and that person. But the reason why we do that really, and I hope that you're seeing and learning now, is that we really handle specific components in our program areas. So please know that anytime we're telling you that, we are not trying to pass you off. It's just that if there's something specifically for individual artists, or if you have questions about arts education or arts learning, that's why we're sending you over to other folks in our program areas, or rather departments. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about two of our flagship funding opportunities. The first one being Project Grant for Organizations, which is currently open right now. But please get this in if you are an organization, nonprofit, or a municipality looking for this funding opportunity. It does close on February 3rd. So again, please get that in. And again, that also closes at 5 p.m. This opened back in December. And again, this is open to nonprofit and public institutions. The grant amount is up to $7,000. And again, this is also a cash match or in kind. If you are unfamiliar with what an in-kind requirement is, please, again, as Stephanie had stated, please review those guidelines, or you can email me or call me, and I'm happy, so happy to walk through that process with you. The time period for this starts in the fiscal year of July 1st, 2025, and then that project is supposed to happen anytime between July up until the next year, or rather at the end of our fiscal year, which is June 2026. So this specific project grant supports the cultural activities of organizations and public institutions. Again, the funds may be used to support the execution of arts and cultural projects. And they, a couple of examples of this are arts exhibitions, performances, readings, festivals. Again, we have some other examples of what that looks like. But again, you can call me and you can also check that out on our website. Next slide, please. So our operating support grant is actually the largest granting allocation that we have in our agency. This one is a 2-year cycle. And the thing about this grant is that it really helps to provide organizational and operational support to our arts organizations. So this is open to nonprofits with missions that describe the arts as the primary purpose of an organization, right? So if, let's say, for example, you are a nonprofit and your mission is stating that you are an animal shelter, this is not going to be the grant for you. Again, the primary purpose is that this is a grant that is supporting arts or organizations or cultural spaces. This application opens on May 1st of 2025 at 8 a.m. and then it's going to close on July 1st. So you'll have a good meaty period to get everything together, and again, to review what that's going to look like before you, or if you are thinking about applying. The grant amount is up to $50,000. So for that first fiscal year, you would receive, or within that fiscal year, you would receive 25,000. So you would not receive the whole lump sum. It would just be the 25,000 in that second year. As Stephanie said, before that starts, we're just going to ask for that interim report, and then you'll receive that funding. You will not have to fill anything out after that. The time period of the support, again, July 1st, 2025 to June 30th of the following year, and then again, July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. Now, with that, for those of you who didn't know or didn't have an opportunity to attend, we did host a grants workshop that sort of focused and worked through some of the differences and the nuances of both the PGO and the OSG, because sometimes people do get those mixed up. So if you were not able to attend, we did record that, and that will be available in the next week or two. Again, if you don't happen to see it, please just give me a holler. You know I got you, and we'll get that to you as soon as possible. So what does OSG support? It strengthens Nevada's arts infrastructure. Also, again, like I said, by supporting those general operation procedures, which can be anything from sustaining your operations to accessible programs, art services, or the programming, and really just making sure that this funding is going to support, or rather we'll see the impact of the funding within the community. I did mention that, again, this is on a 2-year cycle, and all organizations, again, must submit a full application, even in fiscal years, and that interim report that I had mentioned earlier. Next slide. Do I have one? I don't think I do.
No, that
Okay.
you're all good, Michelle. Thank you. And as you were speaking, Michelle, I realized we don't have that table up for the what the levels of the budget for the operating support grant, but you can see that in the grant guidelines. It is also in the virtual webinar where we break down what the different levels are. Based on your budget, your most recent annual revenue, that's how how much you can apply for. So if you need that, can't find it in the guidelines or something, just email either of us and we will send you that little table. Thanks so
Now,
much, Michelle.
I just very quickly wanted to point out that you may apply to both of these, but you can only receive one of them. So just so you know. And again, you can receive other funding opportunities. And again, those will be listed not only in the guidelines, but in that webinar that we hosted as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. That's a great point. You can apply to anything that you would like. We determine your eligibility for that, and then if you are awarded, right, we determine what awards you can hold at the same time. And if you have any questions about that, again, just let us know. But we do go over that, yeah, in the virtual webinar. So yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. I think next up, we've got Folklife. Brad, if you want to come on.
Hello again, everyone. Once again, I am Brad McMullen. I am the Folklife Specialist here at the Nevada Arts Council, as well as the State Folklorist for the state of Nevada. I've got 3 different funding opportunities I'm going to go over real quick, but to start with, if you're not sure if you are a folk artist or a traditional artist, you can feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about it, but just as the general overview, folk arts are something individually, nonprofits. It's both involves educational as well as non-educational projects. The important thing is that your artistic practice is grounded in some kind of community, whether that is your ethnic community, the Basque heritage, Shoshone, Paiute, any of our other indigenous nations here in Nevada, Mexican, or it could even be a specific state, Hidalguense, Morelense, as pictured here, but also things like occupational groups, cowboys, showgirls, casino dealers, as well as just other communities of choice. It can be, something specific to your neighborhood, to your church, to a fraternal organization. All of those groups have their own specific artistic practices that are encompassed under this folk and traditional arts label. So that's what I am dealing with as the folklife specialist. And then I've got 3 different grants available depending on what you are interested in, whether it's an individual or nonprofit. So next slide, please. First up, there's the Folklife Artist Grant, or the FLA. You'll see it abbreviated as. That is for individuals and collaborative groups. So say a band, a dance group. If there is an individual applying to receive the funds, this is the one to go for. It'll open up on May 1st for projects starting July 1st or all the way up to June 30th. You can receive up to $3,000. I just keep giving them out as long as there's still funding, and it supports traditional arts projects. In the past, this has been specifically for traditional arts projects focused on teaching that traditional art. That is no longer the case starting in fiscal year 26. It is still for if you are a traditional artist and you want to do a class or take an apprentice to teach them more in depth, you are welcome to apply for this grant. It has also opened up, so now it can be used if you are a Nevadan who is interested in learning a traditional art, whether it is from someone in Nevada or from someone else, and you want to bring that traditional art back to your community here in Nevada. You can apply for this grant to subsidize your learning of that traditional art, as well as a cultural reclamation if there is a art that is no longer practiced within your community here. You can take this grant to go study archival collections, to go learn from related traditions to help reclaim that art that has been lost in your community, as well as presentation focused. If you are someone organizing a community event, community showcase, for some art form that is specific to your community, this grant will also provide funds to help do that. Because many of these organizations and communities don't necessarily have nonprofits doing that work. So this way, these important community events can still be happening. But if you are a nonprofit, then we've got the Folklife Community Grant. Next slide, please. There. Thank you, Stephanie. This one is for nonprofit organizations. This one's also seen some changes. Previously, you had to be under a $30,000 budget. Now, any nonprofit can apply for the Folklife Community Grant. However, if your annual budget is less than $50,000, you don't have to match the funds. If your annual budget is over $50,000, we will require a 1-to-1 cash or in-kind match. We've also raised the grant amount to $5,000. And once again, this just supports folklife projects, folk and traditional arts projects, being done by community organizations, by nonprofits. So once again, this can be classes where you are hiring a traditional artist to share their art form with your community. It can be cultural events. It can be community festivals, gatherings that feature and focus on the sharing and demonstration of whatever art forms are traditional and specific to your community, whatever that tradition is and however that looks for your community. For both the Folklife Artist and Folklife Community Grant, they are distributed on a rolling basis. I just go until I'm out of funds, like I said. And the first step for both of them is to get in touch with me and talk about what your project is. So if you are interested, please reach out. And then there is the final funding opportunity, which is the Nevada Heritage Fellowship. This one has a specific deadline. It opens up March 3rd and closes May 1st at 5 p.m., just like the Artist Service Fellowships, $5,000. This one recognizes tradition bearers living in Nevada whose body of work has contributed to Nevada's traditional arts heritage. It's an honorarium, doesn't have to be used for any specific project, and it's acknowledging outstanding cultural and artistic accomplishments across the body of work. It is one part of the Artist Service Fellowship, but specific for traditional artists, and is very much modeled after the National Endowment for the Arts, National Heritage Fellowship, if you're familiar with that. And like that one, it's both for individuals as well as collaborative groups. So dance groups, music groups, people who perform together. One individual still has to apply because the way the bureaucracy works, but it will recognize the group as a whole for their commitment to sharing their cultural heritage with their fellow Nevadans. That's what I've got. There will be a workshop coming up, diving specifically into the Folklife Fellowship grant opportunities. If you're interested, or please, my contact information was earlier. Get in touch with me. Come and find me. I'm out at community events all the time. I'll be at the Folk Exhibition coming up at Winchester Dondero's reception Thursday night. So come and find me and talk about traditional arts. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Brad. Okay, so those are our 4 program areas. A lot of information to digest in there with those specific grants and programs for each program area. So, please let us know your questions if you have them on specific grants or opportunities that were presented by our staff in the Q&A. So this last section that we have is our grant writing tips. This is, again, kind of broad, kind of general. I'll just say one more time, please read the specific grant guidelines for the opportunity to which you are applying, because this general advice, I think, and I hope, is helpful, but you really need to make sure that you are sticking very closely to the parameters of the guidelines for the specific grant. So for those grant guidelines, again, please read very, very carefully when you are preparing to apply, and make sure that your proposed project fits the intent of the grant. For example, as Michelle was saying, the Project Grant for Artists is about supporting arts and cultural projects with community impact. So make sure that your proposed project fits the intent of that grant. Make sure that your proposed project is eligible. The Project Grant for Organizations, for example, does not allow any arts learning. You should apply to the Arts Learning Project. The Arts Learning Project, in turn, does not allow for private lessons, which Shireen also talked about. No one-on-ones, no private lessons. It needs to be a larger group. And the Folklife Artist and the Folklife Community grants, both, as Brad said, must be folk art. So if you aren't sure if your artistic discipline or tradition fits, as Brad said, reach out. So make sure that your project is eligible based on the guidelines, but when in doubt, definitely reach out as early as possible to talk it through with all of us. Make sure that you as an individual or you as an entity, depending on the grant, are eligible. As we said, a 501c3 nonprofit has to be in good standing with the IRS, with the Nevada Secretary of State. All entities, so all organizations, whether you're a nonprofit or a public institution, have to have a UEI number, a unique entity identifier number, assigned by SAM.gov. That is a rule of the federal government. If you're an individual, you have to have been a Nevada resident for 1 year and be able to supply proof, 21 years old, and either a citizen or resident. Again, that's not an exhaustive list for eligibility for any of those potential applicants, but it does give you a good idea of the kinds of things you need to look out for. And finally, if you are applying, please make sure that your narrative and materials address the review criteria. At the end of every set of grant guidelines, you will see exactly how panelists, or if it's an internal review, Nevada Arts Council staff are reviewing your applications. There's different review criteria for each individual grant. Even if there's some similar criteria, you should be careful to tailor it to the specific grant opportunity. And please be careful too of the different total scores and weights of each review category. So read those review criteria really carefully, stick closely to them when you are doing your applications. Again, it's not a complete list. Stick close to the guidelines. Okay. So for starting and completing your application via Submittable, which is our online platform, just to keep in mind, when you start an application, you're going to have to create a Submittable account. Please make sure that you use an email that you check regularly, including the spam folder, because Submittable emails often go to spam. So when you are in this process, please check your spam folder regularly. For organizations in particular, make sure you consider using a grants email address for your entity. What does that mean? If somebody leaves the organization and they are the ones who submitted the grant application, they're going to be the only ones that have access to that grant application, email updates, notifications. So really make sure that you have a plan in case someone leaves. There should be a place in the application for all of the organizational applications now where you can add a secondary contact. So just be prepared, right? Plan for those transitions. And also make sure that you verify your email address with Submittable. We have had some folks that miss that email from Submittable when they make their account, then they can't log in. So just try to keep a lookout for all Submittable emails. You can consider adding Submittable as a safe sender for your email, and there are instructions for that now at the top of every grant application. Okay, when you are finally in your application and you are writing everything out, you're adding all of your materials, please read the whole prompt, the whole question. Read the directions if there are extra directions. For example, a huge part of our applications are our artistic work samples, and there are rules around what you can submit, how many you can submit. How many artistic work samples, for example, can be in a particular image or video, how long a video can be. Depending on the grant opportunity, for example, the fellowship application, you have to be an individual applicant presenting your own work. So please read the whole directions, read the whole prompt. Make sure that you actually answer the question for narrative questions. If you're ever unsure about anything, please reach out to the grants team or program area staff. Although we cannot advise you on how to write your application, we can provide guidance, right? On, what is allowable, right? What you are allowed to upload in the application, and also refer you to resources, for example, the grant review criteria. We can't tell you how to write the application, but we can. Again, please submit early if possible once it is complete. Late applications absolutely cannot be accepted, unfortunately, for fairness. So please plan ahead so that you do not accidentally miss, the deadline because of a technical glitch or something like that. Please plan ahead. And I will also say, if there's anything that I'm missing, for my colleagues should feel to jump in at any time, please. Michelle and Shireen in particular spoke about this. Brad spoke about this a little bit too, this question of in kind. So this is kind of the section where I want to talk a little bit about just some tips on keeping track of your budget. So expenses, I suggest recording your expenses in a budget spreadsheet as you go. Keep absolutely all of your receipts. You're going to have to give them in the final report. And as always, refer to the guidelines, our general policies for allowable expenses, so you don't get caught off guard at the end and try to submit unallowable expenses and then be at risk of having to return some of those grant funds. When you're writing your application, try to balance your expenses with your income. What does that mean? Show us, right, that you have enough, you are planning at least to have enough income to cover your expenses. That's in that general budget table, particularly for those organizational grants. With your income, also record it in some kind of budgeting software or a spreadsheet. Account for all of your income because you will also be showing that in the final report. And in the grant application in particular, there is a line for you to enter the requested grant funds as part of your income. If you're awarded, that will be part of your income. So make sure to put that in there. And again, just make sure that they balance. Show us how your expenses are going to be covered by your income. For in-kind, again, please keep track of all of your in-kind When you are putting it in the application itself, right, you can do things like calculate the volunteer hours that would have an associated value as part of your in-kind match. If you're getting a donated space, donated materials, as my other colleagues have said, those can potentially count towards your in-kind match. So doing things like keeping a volunteer hours log, that's not something that you can create after the fact. So please keep that in mind, both when you're planning and submitting that application, but also as the project progresses. And finally, make sure for that in-kind, check the required ratio. Ours thus far this fiscal year, it's only a 1-to-1 cash or in-kind match required for the grants that we have mentioned that require it. Again, refer to the guidelines if you have questions, or ask us if it's not clear. One final thing, I believe Sapira mentioned this, but I'm going to stress it again, that those receipts that you submit for your grant-funded expenses, and when you are planning out when to apply and how to spend those grant funds, those expenses must be incurred and paid during the grant cycle. So that time period of support, that is the time frame in which your receipts should be expended, and that those expenses should be incurred. Okay, I have a little, okay, good. I have a couple minutes here. I have a little example, and this really applies more for organizational grants. This is just an example of in the application, when you see there will be a full project budget table. If you're an individual grantee, you'll just have to fill out a table telling us how you're going to use the grant funds, and then explain a little bit about your potential income, and if there is in kind, it's not required. But for organizations, here's just a little example of what your full project budget might look like for your expenses. So you can see here's these kind of pre-approved categories that we have for the grant. Here's the expenses. You can see that this equals $7,000, which is the grant request amount that you're making. Right, so this is what you're going to do with those funds. Okay. When you get to the full project budget, you're going to have a couple of different sections. That expenses category should look familiar, but of course you may have expenses that exceed the grant request. So here we have someone that has $10,000 in their full expenses, $3,000 more than what they are requesting from the Nevada Arts Council. We want to see the whole picture. In their income, you'll see they're mapping out all of the different sources of funding, including the Nevada Arts Council grant request, about $7,000. So they put that in their budget. And then you can see that their income and their expenses match. So they're showing how they're going to cover their expenses with projected income. In kind section, you'll see that they have some volunteer hours, some donated services, materials, facility, and that those match up to $4,000, right? So when you put that all together, there's $14,000 of their income and in kind. That is indeed double the grant request amount. So just make sure that all of those things are lining up in your budget. We will let you know if we have questions or we see something going on, but it never hurts to have a nice clean budget right out of the gate. I will say this tends to be the most challenging part in many respects for applications. So if you have questions about the budget, please, by all means, reach out as early as possible. We can actually see your draft applications, so we can pop in there, take a peek, and see if there's anything of concern, or follow you through your budget and answer any questions that you may have. Okay. So common issues, again, I've already mentioned some of this, perhaps too much, but not reading the guidelines or general policies is a common issue that we see. It is your responsibility, if you are awarded, when you sign the terms and conditions of the grant, you agree that you have read not only the terms and conditions in the grant award packet, but also in the guidelines and the general policies. So, it's really crucial, particularly when you are spending down those grant funds, that you understand what is allowed and what is not allowed. So please read them very carefully. In the application process too, not following the prompt or directions is often something that we see panelists taking points off for. They are very, very thorough readers, so they're going to know, right, if you're not addressing the prompt thoroughly. From our perspective, from the grants and the program area teams, one problem that we see is people not monitoring their submittable messages. So again, consider adding submittable domain to your safe senders list. There are directions for how to do that at the top of every grant application now. And you can also reach out to us if you have questions, but they often go to your spam folder. And if your messages go unanswered, you will be getting calls from us, but we hate to see a situation in which we can't get a hold of something or someone, excuse me, because something is missing or there is a problem in their application. Please make sure that you're paying attention to those messages and your calls. And when we reach out, please respond to us. Please answer our calls. Please answer our messages, because there have been cases in which we haven't been able to proceed with an application due to a problem. And the last thing that I'll say for common issues is not requesting your panelists' feedback. It's a resource that's available to you, and to request either those written comments on this from Submittable, or the audio or the transcript from the panel meeting if you're not able to attend. Those are really, really valuable sources of feedback, and we see a lot of improvement in grant applications and scores and subsequent funding for folks that really try to improve themselves, right, as grant writers through that feedback. Okay, and then I believe this is my last little slide here about grant writing tips. Just be aware when you're going through this process, if you're awarded, what's going to be expected of you in terms of compliance, because again, these are public dollars, these are state and federal funds. And so there are requirements, and especially final reporting requirements. And if you do not complete those final reporting requirements, you are in jeopardy of having to give back your funds. You are in jeopardy of not being able to apply again to the Nevada Arts Council grants for a certain amount of time, or or other state and federal funding potentially. So after you are awarded, make sure to keep in touch with us. Keep monitoring your submittable messages. Check your spam every once in a while. You want to make sure that your vendor account with the state controller's office is up to date so that we can pay you in a timely manner. We will, of course, let you know if there are problems. If something changes in your plan, a major divergence, we like to say anything, any change 10% and greater, please contact us. You may need to submit a change request form, which we can easily make available to you online. And be aware of your grant cycle close date. That's that time period of support. If you need to be keeping track of that to make sure that you're completing your activities in a timely manner, we really can't have extensions for major grant funded activities, and certainly not for grant funded expenses outside of that time period of support. So it needs to be done in a timely manner, but you do have some flexibility if some things change. Just please reach out to us as soon as possible. For the final report in particular, you need to read, review, and save that award packet that is sent to you that you sign with the terms and conditions, because you will need to refer to it. Make sure that you are paying attention to the things that you have to do besides filling out that final report form, such as writing thank you letters to your elected officials, adding proof of acknowledgement, thank you to the Nevada Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts by the use of either language thanking us for supporting your activities, and or the use of our logos. Those are indeed required things and can jeopardize your grant funding if you do not follow those final reporting requirements. And again, be aware of that final report due date. There can be consequences, right, for turning in your final report too late or not at all. So those are things to just keep in mind. It doesn't end when you get the money, right? It ends once you have tied up everything and let us know how your project went. It's really crucial to our work and to being stewards of those public funds. Okay, so that's all that I have for grant writing. I did want to share a couple of these slides with you. This is just a little snapshot of the applications that are available to organizations, including Project Grant for Organizations, Arts Learning Project Grant, Operating Support Grant, our Arts Learning Express grants in the 2 cycles, and our Folk Life Community Grant. I did share these slides. With the Public Arts Office with Eileen. And so these slides are available to you if you wish to have them, or you can email us, for a copy of this particular slide. I hope to have it up on our website in the near future. For individuals, those grants available to you, the Project Grant for Artists in 2 cycles, the Artist Fellowship Award, Nevada Heritage Fellowship, Arts Learning Express Grant, also in 2 cycles for roster teaching artists, as Shireen said, and the Folk Life Artist Grant. So again, just be aware, put those things on your radar. If you want to have availability to the slide, just let us know. And I think I'll just do I have one more slide to plug for our upcoming in-person workshops. So I think I'll actually just put that up now, but I can bring it up again later. We are visiting potentially a city near you. You can scan the QR code to register. It's not required, but if you are interested in meeting any of us in person and can make these events, please let us know that you are coming. And I'll also note that if you scan that QR code, there are 3 other virtual webinars for arts learning, artist services, and folk life that are coming up on Zoom that we will also be recording and sharing with everyone. So I think that's all that I have, and I think we're right on time for Q&A. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was great information. And that last slide that you put up, that's really great. I'm glad that you guys are doing a quick tour around Nevada and in person talking to artists in the community. That's a really great thing to do. I also want to say that I'm very grateful. I was also a grant recipient a couple of years ago from NAC, and I also had the pleasure of being one of the evaluators at one point. So I've had the pleasure of kind of seeing from both sides, and it's very, very interesting and very cool to see. But let me go ahead and open it for questions. So if you have any questions for any of our Nevada Arts Council staff members, please raise your hand icon, or you can type it into the chat box and we will address them as they come in. Let me check the chat. It looks like we don't have anything in the chat except for a thank you for Sapira from Vision. But let me see if we have any attendees who'd like to ask a question. Alicia, would you like to go ahead and ask your question? Looks like your hand was raised.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Alicia. Go ahead.
Perfect. So I actually am founded and directing a film festival here in Las Vegas. And so I was attending the meeting to see if there were any type of grants that I could apply for, because we do workshops, we also do mixers and everything, and we're trying to grow our mission, which is to educate and elevate the local indie filmmaking community.
I don't know who wants to jump in here. Michelle, I think, I didn't hear the first part of the question because my internet cut out. So I don't know. It sounded like maybe a project grant for organizations. Michelle, what do you think?
Yeah, that's definitely that's what I was going to jump in and say. Yeah, and if you want to contact me specifically about some of the logistics and details, just so you know that because this is federal funding, we can't allow certain things such as food and drinks just because you had mentioned a mixer. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to you further, Alicia, if you want to contact me.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Did you want to add something, Sapira? I saw you were going to say something too. Oops.
Oh no, it was my first question. Is it a nonprofit organization? That's usually my first question.
So I am filing for nonprofit this year. I don't know how long that process is going to take, but that is the plan.
Mhm. Yeah, so just so you're for a project grant for organization, you do need that nonprofit status.
Yeah.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alicia, for your question.
Mhm.
It looks like we have another question from Vision. Vision, you want to go ahead and ask your question? Vision, can you hear us okay? Let me see if he's
I
had.
think it says that someone has to unmute me, so I think someone has to unmute him.
I'm unmuting you on my end. Is that working for you, Vision? All right, awesome. Go ahead, Vision.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for all of the information that you guys provided today. As far as the final reports and the expenses that we can put after, let's say, a project grant, for let's say if it was for the creation of artwork, is there any kind of allowable percentage from, let's say, a home rental or a rental for a home studio that you would use for the creation of artwork? That's like, let's say, a rule of thumb, like an allowable percentage from what you pay.
So do you mean if you had a studio out of
Home
your
studio.
home and your renter, like could you apply that to your rent or to your mortgage, I guess, right? Either one.
Either one.
I see. That's a great question. Certainly, we have had artists that if they are renting a studio space, can show an invoice from that facility, can show receipts from that facility, and for the duration of the project can use that for facility costs. But if you're coming out of your home, actually, I would want to look into that because there are federal rules around that, particularly around home office space. And so for that question, I would say maybe follow up with us in an email and we can do a little bit of research. Yeah, would you agree, Sapira? I'm just thinking about past cases.
Yeah, I would agree. And to say that like that is like we can fund it like once, like if you come back, I'm not sure how that would work. And in addition, you are already paying for that space without that project. So I'm not sure if that is an allowable expense, but we would be happy to look into it. I know that if you're an established business based out of your home, a specific percentage, you can use that as like a tax write-off, but I'm not sure that if that's something a grant would be able to fund, but we would be happy to look into that for you.
Okay. Like always, I have multiple questions, so you guys just let me know for as far as time goes.
Sure. I
Go
think,
ahead.
yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have anything that you guys are, let's say, looking for and let's say not looking for as far as travel goes? Because I have noticed in the past that Canada, Mexico, and Puerto Rico are allowable for project grants. So as far as like individual artists traveling, I know you guys in this workshop mentioned that food is not allowable, but travel is. So is there anything that you guys let's say like and do not like as far as project grants that involve travel? Let's say, for instance, research.
So, oh, and I went frozen again for a minute, but you all can hear me, right? Okay, good. That's a really, really great question. So if you read our general grants and award policies, it specifically addresses this. So travel for meaning especially, accommodation and transportation, it cannot include per diem, it cannot include food and drink for that travel, is allowable for Canada, Mexico, the United States, and its territories and possessions, but nothing outside of that. So it's true that international travel outside of, well, outside of Canada and Mexico, international travel outside of the US and those two countries is not allowable. And as far as the kind of second part of the question, and Sapir, I'm sure you can speak to this too. We have had artists that have done those kind of research trips that support their project. And I would say that it's not so much about what we don't like, it's just those are the only things we're not allowed to support with travel, right? Food and drink, and those areas outside of Canada, Mexico, the US and its territories and possessions. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add, Sapira.
No, that's perfect, Stephanie. Thank you. And like to the question of like, do you like or you don't like? We can tell you what is eligible for funding and what is not eligible for funding. And then based on like if a project would be awarded that is really our panelists, they will score the application and then that application get approved by the board. And the scoring criteria are in each of the eligibility guidelines. So I would encourage you to read over those. And again, the panelists are coming from a standpoint where they're trying to help decide how our public dollars is spent. So that is something, if you want to keep that in mind as you write up your project.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys.
You're welcome. I think I see some questions in the chat.
You too. Let me go ahead and read them off to you. Let's see. We have actually a few different things here. Let me go all the way back. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Everyone's been saying thank you. Oh, we have a question from Heidi. How many grants can you apply for? Also, would a proposal for an art magazine fall into the biannual individual grant?
For that first part of the question, how many grants can you apply for? So you can apply for any grants that you are eligible for, but you can only receive a certain combination of grants. So you need to read the guidelines and make sure that you understand, right, which grants you can hold at once, or if there are specific stipulations, like I'm thinking about Brad. There are some stipulations around the Folklife Artist grant and, how many years you can receive it consecutively. The project grant for artists, you can only receive one per fiscal year, even though we have the 2 cycles. So in addition to, how many, like what grants you can combine together in the same fiscal year, there are some rules around consecutive years. So I would say, look at the guidelines. If you have any questions and it doesn't make sense, then, let us know. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, if anybody wanted to add anything on that, or if that's clear.
I always encourage folks to, if you're not sure, apply. Let us tell you no, it doesn't hurt you if we disqualify you. But if you're not sure, obviously reach out to us. And then, if you don't have time, just put in the application.
Yeah, that's great advice. And this second part about an art magazine, I'm going to take a note from Sapira and ask, so are you asking as an individual or are you asking as a nonprofit entity for the art magazine? Because if it's like a nonprofit, then they wouldn't qualify for the individual grant. If you are an individual that runs an art magazine and wants to apply for funding, I seem to remember that in recent years we have gotten some such applications, but it does kind of depend on the content, right, of the art magazine, right? It really needs to be an eligible project in terms of kind of the creation of art. I guess we do have the new curation. I would maybe want to hear a little bit more about what's in the magazine. I don't know if you have anything to what else you might add, Sapira.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. A lot of projects were like, oh, we're not really creating art, like it's art close to art, it's related to art. We're not really sure. A lot of times because it falls into that gray area, we actually have to review the whole application before we can make a determination if you're eligible or not. So either A, you can reach out to us and give us a little bit more details of what you want to do. Or again, you can just apply with what you have, and then if you don't have time, or we're not able to like reach back out and the deadline's coming up, you can always just put it in and then we can review it and see if it's eligible. But I would suggest maybe just reaching out to us via email and then sharing a little bit more about your project.
Awesome. She said great, and she's asking as an individual person, so I'm assuming that we answered the question.
Yeah, just reach out to us and then we'll be able to help you determine if you can apply for this grant.
Thank you so much. We have Alicia. She has a couple other questions. One is, as an independent filmmaker, which grant would be best fit? And two, I'm a photographer who finishes an MFA in photography in May. Would asking for a grant relating to an exhibit of my photography allowable since I do not complete before Group A deadline?
I think I want to take number two first. I think number two, because you are applying while you are a student for your exhibition, I believe we're not able to accept that application. So you can apply for maybe if you graduate, maybe be in cycle B.
Yeah.
If your project falls into the right cycle. And then for number one, for your independent filmmaker, you can definitely apply for the Project Grant for Artists, but just keep in mind that we still have to review how closely related your photography major is to your filmmaking practice, because it's very clear in our NRS that it cannot have anything to do with what you're applying, your degree and what you're applying for. So we'll have to review that eligibility. And then just a reminder that you can only apply for the Project Grant for Artists once for the entire project. So just keep that in mind when you're going to spend the money, when you're going to need that funding. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. For example, if you apply funding to develop the script, you cannot apply for funding, let's say later, for traveling to shoot. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
No, the only thing I was thinking, I think that, yeah, that all sounds perfect, right? We have to be really careful when you're a student, right? You need to be applying after you finish your program. One thing that I just thought of, and I know that you didn't say, Alicia, that you are like a documentary filmmaker, but just be aware, and you might want to read our general grant policies, because film projects do have to demonstrate significant artistic excellence, emphasis, consideration, or distinction. So that clear connection to the arts is really important for documentary film. Again, I don't know if you're a documentary filmmaker, but I'm just throwing that out there to look at journalistic or historical or academic documentary film or electronic media arts that doesn't have that significant artistic emphasis. We would want to talk about that and hear a little bit more about your project.
Alicia, would it help if I unmuted you, just in case you had any follow-up questions?
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying, thank you. That makes sense. I'm not a documentary filmmaker, but I do have a film that I've already done a proof of concept for, and it's based on military service, like my own personal story. And so I was wondering, like, if I'm wanting to expand that story and create more like a longer short film or something, if there was a grant possible.
Yeah, there may be, I think, in that case, Sapira, please correct me if you have any other ideas. But yeah, this would be a case where I would say, yeah, send us an email with a little bit of a blurb, right,
Okay.
about, like a description for us to just talk with the staff. It sounds to me like it may be eligible, but I do like to hear a little bit more and have a conversation with colleagues to kind of guide you in the right direction. What do you think, Sapira? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, perfect. I can definitely send that information. Thank you.
Great. Let me see if there's any other questions in the chat. It looks like we covered them all. Do we have any attendees who would like to ask a question verbally? Just go ahead and click on your raise hand icon and I can unmute you. Well, it looks like we don't have any further questions at the moment. What I will do is just jump into a couple of announcements from Clark County Public Arts, and then we will come back and ask for some final words from our speakers, if that's all right. Okay, I'm gonna jump into, let me share my content here. All right, so I'm just going to quickly go over these. Please stop me if you have any questions. For next month's full scope, we have speakers Vanessa and Louise, and we have a third speaker as well, which is to be determined at the moment. But our topic for next month's full scope will be the Burning Man Festival. This will be Tuesday, February 18th at the same time, 3 p.m. here on WebEx. Our link is right under here. And just to let you know, this whole announcement slide, I will be sending a copy to all of the attendees at the end of the workshop. We have our Art Committee Board monthly meeting on Tuesday, February 11th for February at 3:30 p.m. You can either join us here at the Clark County Parks and Rec main building at Sunset Park or through WebEx on a link similar to this one. These meetings are for the committee and staff to discuss current and future public art projects. Attendees will have 2 opportunities to ask questions or make comments about the topics covered. Usually we don't have meetings in December and July, so February we will be here. We have a community event at Wetlands Park for our play area public art sculpture. We will be having our design proposal presentations from our 3 finalists. They will be presenting their design proposals for the sculpture that will be at the Wetlands Park play area. And this will be, February 4th, 2025 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Wetlands Park. We also have a reception coming up. It is for the exhibition Folk, which is juried by Brad McMullen. Congratulations, Brad. The reception will be Thursday, January 23rd from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And that will be at the Winchester Dondero Cultural Center. We also have our public art exhibition for the group art exhibition, Youth Temporary Public Art. That is currently on view from January 15th to February 5th, and that will be at the Whitney Recreation Center. We have a poetry call at the moment. We are looking for poetry and readings for the Mother's Roots Gallery reception. This is for our Poet Laureate program. We are looking for 3 finalists to be selected and awarded. The deadline will be Friday, January 24th, so this Friday. And this will be for the reception on Friday, February 21st from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We have a gallery call. Big Softy is still open till Sunday, January 26th. The venue for this one will be at the Winchester Dondero Cultural Center. Our juror is local artist Adriana Chavez. Another gallery art call we have right now is called Empowered Women of Clark County. This will be closing Sunday, February 23rd This will be up at the Rotunda Gallery, and our juror for this one will be Fawn Douglas. We also have an art call at the Clark County Wetlands Park. This is their annual temporary outdoor sculpture exhibit. The deadline for this one is Saturday, February 1st. That is the wrong juror. Excuse me, that is a typo. Another thing that we have going on at the wetlands, they do have a artist in residency open right now. This will be from March 15th to May 15th with a stipend of $3,400. The deadline for this is Wednesday, February 12th, and the whole residency will be obviously at the Wetlands Park. We also have a public art call for a mural. We have Hollywood Recreation Center mural going on right now with a deadline of March 5th. 2025. This has a budget of $55,000. Our ongoing call for qualifications, we have our musicians list call for qualifications. This is for musicians and performers that we like to include in our gallery events and other events that we may have going on. Another ongoing call we have is for our public art evaluators. If you've always wanted to evaluate for a project, this is a great opportunity. It is volunteer based, so unfortunately there's no stipends, but it is a great experience for artists to be on the other side of a project. And then we do have some art calls from the city of Las Vegas coming up. They have the Lunar New Year exhibition, Year of the Snake. That is on view from January 30th to April 12th with the reception of Thursday, January 30th at the historic Fifth School Mayor's Gallery. They have the People of Color exhibition on view January 30th to April. They have a reception for that one Thursday, January 30th. So next week from 5 to 7 p.m. also at the historic Fifth School. We have the Neon Museum Partnership Stories from Backstage that is on view February to July with a reception of Friday, February 7th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the City Hall Grand Gallery. And they also have David Cooper and Corey R. Replogle, excuse me if I said that incorrectly, Vacancy on view from March 3rd to April 24th with a reception in March. And that one is for Charleston Heights Arts Center Gallery. A few more things from the city of Las Vegas. They have some call for artists. One is for Las Vegas Perspectives exhibition. This closes on the 28th of February. This has a budget of $1,000. Oh, excuse me, that is a completely different opportunity. The second opportunity they have is for the Ariel Gallery artwork license. That one has a budget of $1,000, and that deadline is for February 6th by 6 p.m. All of these opportunities and events for the city of Las Vegas, you can find it on this link below. So once I send this PDF over to you, you can click on the link. It'll take you directly to all these opportunities and you can browse through them. They also have some continuous opportunities with no closing dates. They're also looking for guest curators, something probably similar to our evaluator call. They're looking for curators who want to work with the City Gallery program to create exhibitions in the future. And then we also have a few announcements for the city of Henderson. They have a few calls. They have a featured artist for the City of Henderson Art Festival, which has a deadline of January 23rd. They also have a Ninth Island Art of the Hawaiian Diaspora, an exhibition at City Hall Henderson. This submission has a deadline of January 27th. So all of these are coming up really fast here. And then they have their ongoing exhibition, Outside In, artists from the Henderson Public Art Collection. This exhibit closes January 30th and is open at the City Hall. Oh. And as usual, we have our list of resources. On top, we have Nevada Arts Council. Thank you for being our speakers today. This is their link. Go on their website. They have all kinds of great information on their website. Then again, we have City of Las Vegas and City of Henderson on here. We also have City of Reno and Carson City which we know also gives out artist opportunities. And then one more thing, this is our contact information here at Clark County Public Arts. We do offer one-on-one meetings. If you ever have any questions about anything public art that we can help you with, you can set up a meeting with one of our staff members and we can help you out with that. So you can either reach us through our email address, our phone number, sign up for our monthly newsletter for updated information, or you can scan this QR code and it will take you to our newsletter. And that's all I believe I have for today. So let me stop sharing. And then I will open it back up for some last minute questions maybe, or maybe some last minute words from our speakers.
While we're waiting to see if any folks have any other questions, I just want to say thank you to Clark County Public Art Office and Eileen and you know, all of my colleagues. You know, please jump in, but thank you to all of you and to everyone that attended today. Please come see us in person if you can at any of those locations. Reach out if you have any questions about anything too.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you to all of you, the whole group. It's really amazing that I was able to get all of you at the same time. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for all the information. We're always happy to hear from Nevada Arts Council. You guys are doing amazing work over there. So with that, it doesn't look like we have any further questions. So I think it's safe to say we can go ahead and close out the workshop.
Oh,
But
can I just share one thing? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so last minute. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So, Nevada Arts Council do have a webinar for free coming up on January 30th. It's called Keeping Track Record Keeping Strategies That Work. So, you know, it's tax season. If you need a little bit of strategies on how to keep track and, you know, keep track of all the grant expenses that you might have to report, please sign up on our website, nvartcouncil.org. It's going to be January 30th at noon. And don't worry, if you can't make it, it will be recorded and shared on our YouTube.
Yes, I'm excited for that. I actually registered for that just recently, so that's really cool. Yeah, so any other last minute words from our speakers? All right, well then I'll go ahead and close it out. Again, thank you so much for joining us today for Full Scope, and I hope to see you again next month when we invite artists to talk about their experience in the recent Burning Man Festival. Thank you again, and have a wonderful Tuesday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.